Good morning and welcome to what is today? Monday, March 31st, last day of the third month. This is Melzworld Live. I'm your host, Ramel Otis, and welcome. I hope everyone had a fantastic evening or a weekend. How about that? I hope everybody had a good weekend. Mine was absolutely full of different activities. I was off, I think, for the last couple days. So Thursday, Friday, I just had a lot of things going on. Man, I'm trying to remember what happened. Let me pull up my calendar because I have just a tremendous amount of stuff. So before we dive right in, let me figure out what I did last week because there's obviously reasons that I had. Okay, so I think Friday. Okay. Soccer game. What did we do? Oh, I went to the grocery store on Friday. There were some things that we had to get. And then the 27th, which was a Thursday, that was cinnamon roll gate. I think no, that I did that on the 26th. I think I had a show. It's hard to tell. Is all I'm saying. It's hard to tell what's going on. Anyways, welcome, happy Monday. Yeah, I got a fresh cut. My hair was absolutely too long, and I needed to get it down. So, it's such a great feeling in the world. That was it. So, okay, the real big news, is basically whether or not there was going to be a concert in 3 weeks, April 20th. Long story short, there's a Brony convention called BabsCon, the Bay Area Brony Spectacular, and it's been going on for years. It's a large West Coast based convention. It's hosted like deep South San Francisco. It's called Burlingame. I performed there once, many years ago, and the concert head, Pinkaboo, as she's known, in the fandom, she's the concert head I've worked with probably the most, as far as music directors. She was the director at BronyCon, the several years that I was there, if not director, but high up assistant. Throughout the years, she was definitely the director at BabsCon, and she's a very well loved, well respected coordinator, music director. Learning from her is what would enabled me to run the convention, concert for Pacific PonyCon, which is the San Diego based one, in 2016. And that was an absolute spectacular event. Ran very smoothly as far as the concert was concerned, and yeah, just a great time and a good experience for myself. But Pinkaboo is she's one of those like goose moms that kind of make themselves bleed so their children can eat. And I mean that in the best way possible. She absolutely understands the plight of the musician. She understands what it is to struggle because every musician has very specific needs based on their ability, to bring all their gear and perform. And so, if you're a band, a lot of the problems is bringing your own instruments. It's about coordinating with AV. If you're an EDM musician, then your challenges are, how do you get your graphics on the screen while you're running your show? There's a lot of different musical acts which require very specific setups and very specific requirements and all of these things. And your job as the music coordinator is to invite the right group of people, right? The right mix of musicians. It's to ensure that these musicians are available, popular. They don't cost too much, right? If you want to get a good big one, that's going to cut into your budget. You want to make sure that the sets are in an order that makes sense. You're not breaking up the set in a way where musically the it's high energy here, low energy here, high, and maybe that's your intent, right? Like the thing about a music coordinator and the music director is they get to sculpt the entire experience for the concert goer, and that's no small task. It takes tremendous amounts of coordination, kind of an understanding of how acts fit together, understanding of personalities, knowing some acts won't do what will work well with others, doing back to backs. How do you flow between the different acts? And then, of course, it's dealing with egos in negotiation contracts and allocations and allowances for what hotel rooms you can give, if you can, squeezing musicians into the same room, which I don't know if that's indicative of all conventions that have fan musicians, but for money saving, you squeeze musicians into rooms if you can afford it, and I mean sometimes a musician can't have their own room because, and I'm not going to use anybody specifically, they snore incredibly loud, and then the other musicians record them and then remix them into an EDM. Not looking at anybody, not pointing out anybody, but that's another big thing is you have to fit these musicians into a room, and then you have to be considerate if they can't be in a room with other people, meaning they have maybe brought their family, or it's a very specific thing in their contract. It's a juggling game, and it takes an hour, right? It takes an hour. It takes a year, because now you have to get a budget. You have to coordinate with your audiovisual teams. You have to understand the stage, blocking sometimes. It might be almost a theatrical thing where you have to figure out where things go, people go. Technical specifications. So you're in the beginning is where you do most of the heavy lifting, right? You reach out, you negotiate, you get your technical requirements, logos, contracts signed. So then once you've gathered that and you know who's coming where and how their accommodations are set, and then you go into the planning of the actual event, which is working with the hotel staff and understanding what AV is available from them. What AV do you need to rent? Like, you're probably going to need to pull from the pool of volunteers in order to figure out, who's going to be the roadies, who's going to move stuff around, who's going to test equipment. And then you're going to go into that phase where you need to coordinate with the art team because they need to create a poster, and that poster is always going to be a way to promote the band. So when I was doing Party Cannon, right, that was the name of my event. I did the art, like not the art. I gathered the art and I created the marketing for the musicians. I allowed the musicians to promote it. I promoted it as well using the Babs, the Pacific PonyCon social media. So I mean, it was a pretty big, it's a big thing to do, and then you work it until you get to the event. And when everything's ready, then you got to coordinate, make sure all your musicians arrive. So you're tracking where their locations are. You want to make sure they check in time. You need to make sure they get a mic check, a sound check. You want to make sure that they are received and that they know what their schedule is if they have to do a meet and greet. So yeah, it's a big thing. And I've worked with Pinkaboo for, like I said, a better half of 10 to 12 years, right? I think 13 years since I started doing this. And she's always been pleasant, and she's always bled for the musicians. She's always been an advocate. And she got fired on, I believe, Thursday or Friday. I think it was a Friday. They let her go on a Friday. And they didn't really tell anyone in so much as they sent an email to every musician that was registered to play. And I wasn't sure what they were going to do. But, you hop into the Discord chat and you find out that everyone is going to basically protest the event and not participate. And me, I don't have, honestly, I don't have a budding career anymore. I'm doing this out like really because I love Pinky as a friend, and on top of that, I want to see old friends that are going to perform. And I have an opportunity to perform with people I never had the chance to. So I said, fuck it. Okay. You're not going. I'm not going. That's cool with me. Like, I'm not gonna argue And you get that thing where you get that dopamine hit of like canceling plans. Because here's the thing: if I was gonna go, it would be we would be performing in like 4 weeks, right? So today's Monday the 31st. So 1, 2, 3. I have 3 weeks basically. Um, what's it? 20 days to get reacclimated to my set. I was gonna probably perform 4 tracks. I don't remember off the top of my head, like if I wanted to start a song, like I would remember the lyrics. So I have 4 weeks to get into performance shape, and that includes, getting my cardio up. That includes memorizing tracks, performing them, understanding what to do. So to hear that it was canceled, I was like, it was a huge, like kind of a huge weight, because it meant that I wouldn't have to do those things. Not to say that I don't want to do those things, but it's anticipating having to do those things that is suddenly not there. So, I thought, okay, it's not happening. No problem. Good luck. Best of luck to them. And I guess that's the end of my performance career, at least as a Brony musician, which is fine because they've been out of the game for over 9 years. Um, However, the Discord chat is passionate and furious, and it is filled to the brim with a combination of creatives and um, people that just love to do what it takes to get something going. Right, like it's a lot of passion people. They under some different conventions work under very different strained relationships. The con chairs, the heads, the staff don't give a lot of these volunteers a lot of respect or a lot of time or a lot of consideration. There is sometimes this stigma that fan musicians are, they have large egos, and they have large requirements, and they suck a large amount of the budget. And so the overall the con staff kind of look to the musicians as a pariah, because there's you pay to have your voice actresses like Tara Strong or whoever visit your convention. I mean, they're paid professionals, and their visitation, their showing up fees, they don't do this out of the kindness of their hearts. But you look at a fan musician and you think, well, you're no different than a fan artist. We don't pay fan artists. Well, you kind of do. If you allow fan artists to be vendors, they'll pay to have a spot on the floor, as any vendor does, and then they will sell the snot out of their fan art. But realistically, you bring on musicians because it is a con draw, right? It is for whatever reason the people are going to your convention, bringing their favorite musicians. I mean, I don't have any studies, but I would imagine cause a large impact to your the volume of guests that you have. And so, the bigger the musician, the bigger the chance of the draw. The more genres, the bigger the chance of the draw. So you bring in, your big names, you bring in, your country and your hip hop and your rock and your, R&B, and you bring all those people because they are a draw. And then it's the concert. The concert typically is the big nights before the last day of the convention, or the night before the last day of the convention, because you spent the whole convention, walking around with your friends, visiting the vendor floor, participating in panels, and for the most part, there's a lot of your attention that's required as a convention attendant. You're doing a lot of social. You're engaging in a lot of social energy. You're engaging in a lot of just a lot, right? Your attention, standing in lines, queuing up, buying things. So you're spending money. The concert's where you go to party, right? It is you've done everything you need to do. Now you get dressed in your best dance outfit, whatever that is, right? And you go to this convention and you just lose your mind for 6 hours, right? You just have a good time. You feel the music. As a musician, there is definitely an intensity to the bass, right? The drum machine just thumping and thumping, and you could feel it in your soul. One of the conventions that I went to, everybody was jumping. Everybody was jumping so hard that there were reports of earthquakes in the neighboring areas, and I thought that was amazing. I think that was in Baltimore, but the jumping was so great. So there is definitely a there's definitely a positive impact of having your musicians there. And on top of that, the musicians take up a vendor area themselves, and they try to squeeze a little bit of income from themselves because they don't, 99 out of 100 times, no fan musician's getting paid to be there. But the considerations you give them is you got to give them a place to sleep. You got to give them a place to, you gotta incentivize them to be there. Maybe you pay them a little bit. Maybe you pay for their travel, right? Maybe you cut a couple $100 to get them to your venue. Um, but none of these musicians are asking for tremendous amounts of money. They want to see their friends. They want to perform their songs. They want to make a good show, and they take a break from whatever they do. If they're a career professional, right, a career musician, they're leaving the comfort of what they understand. They can control their musical destiny when they're at home, right? They know how to play their open mics, or they have a tour schedule. They're stopping now to add a convention. So Pinkaboo understood this deeply. She had a deep and great appreciation of the musician struggles and the underappreciation of whether or not they have an impact on the concert. And I'm not saying all conventions think this way, but I've heard that some conventions definitely put these musicians on a lower tier because they don't think they think they're helping them, and it's not the other way around. Anyways, so she got fired. The reasoning wasn't specific, at least at the time, and I would argue the reasoning wasn't good when it became specific, right? As someone who myself have dealt with that level of leadership, there's when you're diametrically opposed to leadership in a philosophy of how you do things, right? When you when you change and you pivot the way that you engage with the leadership in order to ensure that the people that you represent, that you advocate, have a good time, that they don't feel stressed out, that they feel safe, that they feel respected, encouraged, all of those things, and that makes you change the way you talk to your uppers. um it creates a sense of distrust, right? If you're telling them one thing but you're turning around and you're telling your staff the other thing, you're changing the narrative when it comes up to the leadership. And if the leadership gets word that you're doing that, they feel like they can't trust you anymore. And that's kind of what I had to deal with. And immediately, based on the verbiage and the wording and the subtext of all of the incoming information, it made me 100% empathize with with her and what happened. Because like I said, from an HR perspective, the only reason you'd fire somebody in a timely manner is because if they posed a threat to themselves or somebody else. That's just not the case. Pinkaboo does not pose a threat to herself or to anybody around her. 3 weeks prior to an event, from a music coordinator perspective, the work is done. All of the heavy lifting. I would say 90% of the work done. And to boot somebody 3 weeks prior, what you're saying is, thanks for all your hard work, we'll take it from here. And then proceed to be the face of the success. And that's fucked up. Right? Like that's not cool to let somebody do all the heavy lifting and then say, our hands are tied. We couldn't even make it 3 weeks. Like, what does that mean? What absolute explosion would have happened in 3 weeks? Here's a hypothesis, right? My hypothesis is if they kept her on for the final 3 weeks, then they think, rightfully, that she would poison the well, right? Everybody would show up, and then she would explain all of this in great detail to these musicians all of her issues and all of the struggles and all of these things, and then the musicians in turn would immediately never want to work with these people again, regardless. Even though this is the last convention that's ever been thrown, that's not the last convention that they're ever going to do, right? This is just for this specific show, this specific name, this specific venue. But these guys might move on to different places. They might go north and work in Portland. They might go in, whatever. And they don't want to be known as these people that mistreat their staff. So if they got rid of her, ignorantly, they thought, well, all the musicians will play, we'll have a great show, and boom, we got rid of our problem. And they didn't stop to think for 1 second that this lineup was absolutely going to defend her. No clue. Or at least it was a gamble that they were willing to try. And they failed. All the musicians stood up in solidarity, backed her, and withdrew, right? But the problem when you have creatives who are passionate, who are independent, right? They know how to do things on a shoestring budget. They're all in this Discord chat. They're all passionately arguing, discussing. I wouldn't even say arguing. They're openly discussing. Everybody's being rational in chat, and suddenly the idea is, well, it's that Bender meme from Futurama. Okay, well, we'll make our own casino. And that's it. They got on that train. And here's the part that's wild to me, right? They are going to get another venue. They're going to find a way to get the musicians there. They're going to go with 3 weeks left into overdrive, right? And into overdrive, they're going to do a concert, which usually you get a year, in 3 weeks, right? That's insane. But lo and behold, they secured a venue. They have made accommodations for musicians who couldn't make it, right? And then it's moving. Right now, I can hop right into the Discord chat, and it is buzzing with activity. It's brimming with electricity. You have artists, and you have volunteers, and you have AV people, and you have all these people in the chats ready to go, ready for mobilization. And it truly is a beautiful thing, right? It's really impressive, and I'm excited to see what they do with such little time. And maybe some of the best stuff happens at that level, right? At that time crunch. 3 weeks is more than enough time, I think, if everybody does exactly what they plan on doing. If the leadership guides, motivates, moves, they build the scaffolding of what needs to happen, everybody knows their parts and everybody does their parts. Spending the next 3 weeks, they should be able to pull it off, right? I actually have no doubt that this is going to go well. I've known these artists. I've known their do-it-yourself mentality, so I know every single one of these artists are leaders in their own right. They led their own brand. They've led their own, there's a lot of self-starter entrepreneurial spirit when it comes to making your own music. And they have played these concerts. They've ran into the problems. They've known over the years how to avoid the miscommunication struggles, the self-advocacy. So that's what we're seeing in action right now. We're seeing a 3-week mobilization of zero to concert. Here's my problem. Not my problem. Here's my concern, and it was brought up on Twitter. You make this show happen in 3 weeks, and it's going to be with money that's coming out of the pockets of fans, money that's coming out of the pockets of volunteers. It is completely self-funded, no accommodations for any musician. If they pull this off, if they have a show, Yeah, it's a big fu to the convention, but is it really? And I don't mean you're a Congor. You hear your favorite musician isn't going to play anymore. You're disheartened. You're still going to go to the convention. There's still floor activity. You got to support the vendors. You got to support the hardworking volunteers that are part of the event. Nobody should be punished. So you're still going to go. And then you go and you come to find out the musicians are still playing. They're just playing elsewhere. Maybe it's a $10 Uber or a $20 round trip Uber. That's not a bad gig. Okay, I'll do all of my shopping. I'll check out some panels, and when the concert's available, I'll get an Uber, and I'll go over there and I'll enjoy my show, and then I'll go home and the convention heads had not lifted a finger. In fact, there's no resource allocation. There's no hard work or money or time being invested into these musicians. They went and did it themselves. How great. In fact, we could probably promote that then. And so now the con heads aren't getting punished. The convention itself isn't missing that element, and no one's put any energy or effort into making it happen. From an outside perspective, how is that not a win? Okay, that being said, as a symbolic gesture, saying we don't need you, as a love letter to the fans, as an earnest way to make sure that the vendors don't feel like they're going to get left out, the artists throwing the concert themselves, that is a selfless act of love. That is a we all appreciate, respect, and want to perform with each other. We miss seeing each other. We're happy to do this out of, not of spite, but out of the kindness of making sure the people that are paying are getting what they want. But the part that's, like I said, the part that's hard to reconcile is the fact that it's extra money being shelled out. It's extra amounts of effort. I guarantee you some of these volunteers or some of these artists weren't anticipating on mobilizing for the next 3 weeks. They thought, well, I have my own agenda that I have to go to when I do this convention. I have my own set of friends that I want to hang out with. I have my own panels that I want to visit. And now their next 3 weeks are going to be crunch. And they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. But somebody's going to shell out some money. The place that they've rented isn't cheap, I would imagine. Yeah, it's going to be pricey for a one-night concert. The place they located was gorgeous. So there's money to be spent, and people are mobilizing and they're investing time. I mean, this was an entire weekend of people just talking and working this thing out. So I would be remiss to not perform the hell out of this convention, right? The other conventions I definitely performed for and I was ready for, but this one, it would be absolutely inconsiderate to come in with a similar energy. I think I need to give more as well, right? I can't afford to give more financially, but I can give more in putting into a better show, into a more polished and, all right. Anyways, that's my time. I can't catch up. I got a 9 o'clock, but I wanted to show you this. Keep this in the memories, and then once again, I appreciate you all. Thanks for coming. We'll do a real update tomorrow when I'm not butted up against another event. So thanks for coming. This is Melzworld Live. Have a good Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.